In this video, I am going to talk about the 20 common practices that everybody takes as fact that are actually wrong. For starters, a lot recently I've been hearing about you must feed 2 days before the race for the birds to be able to use the fat for the race. For example, feed fat seeds on Thursday because the birds can't use that fat seeds until Saturday, the day of the race, which is totally crazy. I feed fat seeds the day of shipping if I need to. Those fat seeds are digested, they're placed in the cell, they're ready for energy by the next morning. So keep that in mind. You don't have to worry about that myth of feeding the fat 2 days before the pigeons can't use it. Number 2, drafts. Pigeons will not get sick if they're in drafts. When I was a kid, my father used to say, put on a coat before you go outside, you're going to catch a cold, which was ridiculous because that isn't how it worked. You want as much air in the pigeon lofts as possible. Don't be afraid of air in the pigeon lofts. It's excellent for the birds. Now, with the race team, you kind of want a little bit less of variations in climate, but pigeons stay much healthier with a lot of airflow. So if you can have a lot of air moving through the loft, don't worry about drafts. They're not going to get sick. If pigeons get sick from a draft, they're pretty much a weakling anyways. But again, drafts don't make pigeons sick. Number 3, cold vaccine. I draw my vaccine from the vial and I inject the pigeons. I use a clean syringe. I fill the syringe. I inject the vaccine cold. I put the vaccine back in the refrigerator cold. There's a myth that the birds will get like a lump or some type of lesion at the vaccine site from cold vaccine. Totally untrue. I bet I've vaccinated with all my exporting 100,000 pigeons with cold vaccine. Never once have got a lump in the neck. Use the vaccine cold, keep it fresh, use a fresh needle every time you go into the vaccine bottle, and it will keep. Don't warm it up, keep it cold, use it till it's empty, but always a clean, sterile syringe when you put it in the vial. Another thing that I've been hearing since I was a kid is feeding light to heavy. If you feed light to heavy, your birds will go to the races heavy. For short races, feed light. Feed light from the day after return through the day of shipping. You'll be so much more, you'll be at a huge advantage. Trust me on this one. A lot of people start feeding Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the heavier seeds, the fat seeds. Your birds are going to be too heavy. Try a week. Feed the depurative mix, say 25% barley, starting the day after shipping, through the day of shipping. See how you do. You'll be pleasantly surprised. The other thing we talk about is people train way too much. They beat the birds down the road. They're loft flying twice a day. They're pushing and pushing. That's because of feeding. Once your birds are educated, they don't need a lot of training, and you do that with feeding. 2 or 3 flights a week between races is plenty. But you have to feed correctly. If you feed correctly, they don't need a lot of work. If you feed incorrectly, they need a lot of work. In my videos, I talk a lot about feeding correctly. You can have the same results with a fraction of the work if you feed correctly. One of my pet peeves is when there'll be say a one-loft race and they have a 60-mile training toss and a bird comes alone and it's out front. It wins the toss and the person's putting their pedigree online, or you're training your own birds and something comes ahead of the flock. There's something wrong with those pigeons. The pigeons that break and leave the flock are early pigeons on extremely short races are sick. Something's bothering those pigeons. They're weak. They may do it a few times, but then they're going to fall behind as soon as there's any type of distance. So don't get excited if your birds are early on short training tosses because they are the worst of the group. You have to pay attention to that. So if I see that, I panic. If I'm training my own birds and something comes ahead of the flock, I know it couldn't stay with the flock. That bird has a problem. So be aware of that. And don't celebrate an early bird on a short race. When I was a kid, and still many feel the same way, there are breeders and there are racers. And the racers aren't the breeders and the good breeders aren't the good racers. Total myth. Your best racers, pigeons that have scored over and over and over, say in especially long distance, but a pigeon has scored year after year, over and over and over, you know their genetics. The genetics are excellent. those pigeons almost always are really good breeders. Concentrate on the star racers and use those for your breeders. Many of you race a system in young birds, like say the dark system. Well, if you have success with young birds on the dark system, don't judge the pigeons. Now, there could be some good pigeons performing at the top, but it's mostly system. If you want to really test your pigeons, don't put them on a system. Let them fly just on a natural system. Let the young birds fly natural. See what actually performs. Because if you're getting 10 or 12 on a drop, or you're beating your club, and you're racing against a lot of guys that aren't flying on the dark system, you're at a huge advantage. The pigeons aren't as good as you think they are. So don't select by pigeons on a system, whether it's light or dark. Don't get too excited about their performances, because when old birds comes and it's all evened up, they're probably not going to do anywhere near as well. Inbreeding. Forget about inbreeding. Don't go by 10th grade genetics. All I heard was, and I still hear from the old timers, is inbreed, line breed, and outcross. You're going to waste yourself a lot of time. Breed from the best. Pack as many unrelated superstars in the pedigree as possible. If you don't have an inbred bird in your loft, don't worry about it. I don't want inbred pigeons. I do breed inbred pigeons, but mainly for sale because everybody wants the inbred pigeons. I know myself, if I could have an unrelated champion as the mother and an unrelated champion as the father, these two pigeons aren't related, and I put them together, those babies have a greater chance of success for breeding than two inbred pigeons. And if you are going to inbreed, don't inbreed for the sake of inbreeding. Both pigeons must be super. The sire has to be either a big winner and the dam has to be a super breeder. Don't just put a great breeder on his daughter that's never did anything. The daughter could be a stiff, and you're just diluting those genetics. If you're going to inbreed, you have to inbreed the very best. You can only inbreed from two pigeons that are super. That way, your chances are greater. If you're just inbreeding for the sake of inbreeding, some people bring in they buy a bird and then they breed it to its daughter and they think they're going to cross those babies out. No performance. Your odds go down. So the Europeans, the top pigeon fanciers in the world, pack as many unrelated superstars in the pedigree as possible. If you do that, your results are going to go up. Minerals. Everybody has heard me talk about minerals. You want to invest in minerals. If you have a choice between buying, $40 a bag of grain that's 18% protein, or $30 bag of grain that's 14% protein, spend the extra $10 on the minerals. If you have the minerals, the pink minerals, the natural minerals, the pick pots, the brown minerals, the magnesium blocks, you're going to raise beautiful babies. Grit's very important too. The Belgian grit and redstone. Concentrate on the minerals more than the feed for breeding pigeons. Celibate pigeons. Now, as many of you know, I've been racing celibate cocks, celibate hens. Keep it simple. Save yourself a lot of work. Keep them separated. You don't need mates. You don't need motivation. Motivation helps your head, and you may have 20 pigeons, you're playing games, you're bringing in hens, you're throwing in bowls, you're teasing them, you're going to help one and you're going to hurt 19. Believe me, forget about the motivation, it's useless. Keep it simple. Once you stop motivating pigeons, your results will go up, the performance will be steady, and they don't fly. Pigeons not remembering like tomorrow afternoon that its mate was there, yesterday afternoon. Believe me, don't motivate the pigeons. It helps one, you might hurt 19. What drives me crazy, people will have birds, they'll fly a 400-mile race, 500-mile race all day, say today. And tomorrow they're letting them out to stretch, to get the lactic acid out of the muscle. Let them rest. There is no need for a flight after a race. Let them rest. And speaking about rest, I had to quantify rest because I talk about rest a lot. So what I always do, no matter what the race is, especially, starting with short distance, if they fly Saturday, Sunday and Monday are rest days. They don't leave the loft. Tuesday is a short training toss. So I use that from 100 to 300 miles. After that, it's 1 day of rest for every 2 hours on the wing. So if they fly 10 hours, they got to stay in the loft at least 5 days. You got 12, 13, 14 hours. My birds are in over a week, sometimes 9, 10 days inside. No movement at all before they start exercising again. Rest is so very important. And but you have to feed correctly during the rest, predominantly barley mix, light mix, and so on. Oh, speaking of light mix, for a million years and even through today, some fanciers have their birds come home to canary seed and little light seeds and non-nutritious seeds, thinking that it's easy to digest. No. The most important meal after a big workout is the first meal. When they come home from the race, have everything imaginable in front of them. Have all the high-end grains, put all the fat seeds, just load them up. Let them select what they need. Their system knows what they need, along with the minerals. They'll eat a lot of the minerals, but don't skimp on the feed when they come home from a major race or after a workout. I do that every race, 100 through 600 miles. The troughs are full. You name it, it's in there. You could put pellets in there. You could put rabbit pellets in there. Extra fat seeds, let them recover. It's so, so very important. Another thing I've been getting recently, because I'm a big advocate of barley, you learn to use barley correctly and the game becomes so much easier. And many of my fans have done that. And if you were a champion fancier before, you can still be a champion with a lot less work. If you've never achieved results, you've probably shipped your birds too heavy to the races. You got to start feeding correctly. The myth is barley heats the pigeons up. Again, I get that asked all the time. Oh, I'm told the barley heats the pigeons up. Ridiculous. These myths pass through the sport from generation through generation. Barley does not heat the pigeons up. It's the best possible feed for the actual race team. I've been racing celibate hens for many years. And when I first started with these celibate hens, I would hear if the hens made up to each other, they're finished. And I was a nervous wreck when the hens started cuddling in the corner and they may lay a set of eggs throughout the race season. Until year after year, these celibate hens that are mated race like crazy. So they're mated, they cuddle. When they don't drive, they don't lay very quick. It's the cock that causes them to drive, and stimulates the hen to lay. But when they're just cuddling, they don't lay a lot. These hens that are mated up and cuddling race like crazy. I had, must have been 10 years ago, first and fifth ace pigeon of America. They were a mated pair the whole season. The hens were mated. So don't worry, don't panic if they're mated. Ship them, make sure they're not eggy. They may lay a set of eggs. If you want to let them sit the eggs, that's fine. But don't worry about them if they're cuddling. They'll race like crazy. The immune system. Meds have become a huge factor in the sport. You can race and breed and keep pigeons year-round in any climate, totally antibiotic free. Now, you may not believe it, because people, they're treating after the race, they're treating before the breeding, they're treating after breeding, they're treating during the race season. You don't need it. Pigeons can build a natural immunity. My race team hasn't been flock treated since 2013 was the last time I did a flock treatment. My breeders, even before that, I haven't treated for coccidiosis probably in 25 years. I don't treat for canker. Now, if a bird gets sick, I will treat them individually. I have, the different tablets, and I will treat them, and usually I leave them right in with the other pigeons because it boosts the immune system of the others. But build your immune system. Now, the first year might be a little bumpy, because weak pigeons breed weak babies, which takes a little while to get up to speed. But after about a year, the immune system gets stronger, and you'll see the weaklings. At my loft, the weaklings take themselves out of the population because I don't medicate. If I medicated, the weaklings would be breeding, and I'd be passing weak generations after generation through the genetics of my pigeons. But because they may have a problem, I'll lose them in racing training, or they'll show themselves. That's a weakling. If they're all healthy and one's sick, you know the weakling. There's no guessing there. Another thing, when I was a kid, you'd handle birds with super feather, and the people would say, oh, give them a little more oil seeds or baths. And feather's born, feather's genetics. You can't make super feather. Now, they need to be nutritionally complete for the most part, but that really super feather is born. It's not made. So you want to look for super feathered pigeons. I'm not sure if they fly better because the super feather is a higher quality. If there's less drag, there's less, it's like oil on something. It's slick. Maybe the super feather doesn't have as much drag through the air as dry, rough feather. Maybe it's, I'm not exactly sure, but the great ones have great feather, and it's genetics. I did an experiment that I talked about. I had about a dozen old pigeons that no longer bred. So I fed them just whole corn, just maize that they call them most of the time. That's the only thing they got, along with their minerals and grits, for a whole year. They molted on it. They did everything on just this maize, and their feather was beautiful and super and silky, just like it was on all the grains and everything else. So it's a genetic thing. You can't feed something to increase your feather. Pigeons panting, like they'll come home and the beaks are going and people panic. They like, oh boy. Well, what I've found that when pigeons get nervous, like say they get spooked by a hawk and their system is going and going, and they'll be panting. It's a nervous reaction. Also, it's the same with me. If I run up one flight of stairs, I'm huffing and puffing. So if a pigeon goes up for a short 10-minute flight until the blood and circulation really gets going, they'll come back and they're panting. And I'll run up a flight of stairs and I'm panting. If I warm up, I can run up 40 flights of stairs without panting at all. So if you look at me after one flight, you say, oh, that dude has respiratory. After 40 flights, I'm fine. So pigeons that fly maybe 10, 12 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, a lot of times they're panting. They flew an hour, they would land without panting. A hawk chases them, they bolt. The nerves are going, they're panting. Don't panic, don't medicate. Open the mouth, should be pink. You can, when the bird calms down, the windpipe should lay like in a little oval. It shouldn't be wide and lunging forward. 90% of the time when people are treating for respiratory, the birds are healthy just because they saw them panting. And new flyers always panic when they see them panting. Pox vaccine. The vaccine companies want to sell a lot of vaccine, and I can't blame them because that's their business. Well, if you've seen my videos, I mix up maybe a little bit of pox vaccine at a time, and I put it in a syringe. And I actually draw the skin up and I push a droplet through the skin. Well, that syringe of pox vaccine, once it's mixed, I'll keep for at least 3 weeks. I'll put it in the refrigerator. Next time I have to wean babies, I'll vaccinate with the same pox vaccine. It keeps a long time. So you don't have to keep mixing up and going through a lot of pox vaccine. And I make fresh stuff approximately every 3 weeks during the breeding season when I'm weaning babies. But you can save yourself a lot of money. Mix up a little pox vaccine at a time. Put it in a syringe. Put a little droplet through the skin on the leg. You'll get a little BB take. That's great. Now, the pigeons that have a big giant take are the weakest immune system birds. So you'll do all your babies, and they'll all have just a little tiny little, just like a BB, little tiny little take. Tiny little thing. And then a couple of them might have this big like a pea. Watch those birds. The birds that have the biggest reaction to the pox have the weakest immune system. One of my pet peeves growing up, crushed granite. The chicken grits, the pigeon grits in America especially, they crush granite. They'll add some mineral and salt to it, honest oil, sometimes some charcoal, a little bit of shells. It's sharp. It's like chips and sharp edges, and it's so irritating to the birds. When they try to digest that and they're grinding that in their gizzard, it's causing lesions. I think a lot of sickness enters because of the bad grit, because you're giving your birds a ground granite. The birds don't have any choice if that's all they have for grit. They're going to eat that. Now, if you look at the Belgian grits, the grit and redstone, which is my favorite, all the companies make it, it's pebbles. They're round little pebbles. They're not sharp, fragmented granite. And they're little seashells, there's redstone. But if you found, say, a pheasant, my father was a hunter and he used to shoot pheasant, and if you opened the gizzard, it was full of pebbles, little round pebbles. So you may be able to go, you might be able to find a river near your home which just has like just pebbles. If you can't get if you have to buy the ground granite, go look for your own grit. You might have a beach with open water and you'll see the pebbles. And of course, if you wanted, you could put it in the oven and you could bake it and sanitize it. You could rinse it and dry it. Look for pebbles. You can always add oyster shells or something along those lines for the calcium. But if I could give you advice, don't use the ground granite grit. Most of the American grits, or maybe all the American grits, are the ground granite. It's terrible, terrible grit. I hope you like my videos. I hope you made it to the end. Please subscribe, share with your friends. This is Frank McLaughlin, McLaughlin Lofts. And if you could put down below something that you've been told that you feel might not be, the old timers told you that you think is a total farce and a myth, and maybe we can talk about that. I answer my questions, add a comment, and if I can do anything, I'm enjoying myself with the videos. Frank McLaughlin, McLaughlin Lofts. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.